Hi, my name is Sandra Brown. I'm going to be discussing a type of rug hooking using spot dyed wools in this video. It's called the meandering style. It goes by several other names, and this particular video is tied to an article that is showing up in Rug Hooking magazine in the fall and winter of 2017-2018 that has to do with hooking fine and finely shaded geometrics. Because there are several parts of the geometric circle in a square geo that is the pattern that is in the article that talks about that uses a meandering style. So I thought I would demonstrate this since it's kind of a little bit complicated. So here we have a nice piece of spot dyed wool. There are several ways to hook spot dyed wool, but one of the problems is trying to keep a zone of color essentially zoned on your piece. You have a rectangle of wool. One of the ways you can do it is simply run it through your cutter once. You get your 4 strips, you keep them in a row on your table or next to your hooking, and you hook them one at a time into the piece. So that means that if there's any zones of color, they're going to kind of stay together. The problem with this technique is that the result is still straight row hooking, which sometimes is not all that interesting. So what we're going to do here is a style that I've just called meandering. We're going to cut the wool, but we're going to, on our piece, we're going to be hooking it up, and if we come up with a color, we're going to continue hooking around that color until that color disappears from the strip of wool. And then we'll move on to the next color, and if we run into another color we want to zone, then we start going around that color until we've run out of it. And then we'll continue on, and then maybe we'll run into a third color that we want to keep zoned, and we keep kind of hooking around that. So that is a style of hooking. Because it's not in straight rows, you don't have to worry so much about the shifting of these zones of color, because you're actually kind of compressing them to one area, but you end up with a much more tapestry type effect in the hooking, because you don't see the loops, you don't see the straight rows. It's a very pretty way of filling an area. And what I'm going to be using it for is the sky on this simple pattern here. It's meant to be kind of a night scene of a house with the lights on, but I want to use this brightly colored spot dye wool to hook the sky. So I'm going to show you in this video how to do the meandering style. So I'm going to tear some wool to get it ready to run through the cutter. I've marked it when I dyed the wool with the cuts so that I know the direction that the wool needs to be torn. And remember, when we tear our wool, we tear it down like this, not like this. Keeps the threads in place. And then I'm going to run this through the cutter. I have a number 5 cutter on the Townsend cutter here, the Townsend blade. You can kind of see the zones of color that I'm going to be working with here to try and keep intact on the piece. Alright, so the meandering style, basically I've got my strip of wool, and it has both yellow, turquoise, and little zones of green in it. They're pretty small, but I know I want to zone these yellows and these turquoises, and I don't just want them showing it up anywhere on the piece. So I'm going to start a little bit off of the edge with my first tail, first loop, I'm already starting to go around in a meandering pattern here, and I pulled up my first little piece of wool loop that has the turquoise on it. I'm not sure how big that's going to be, so I'm going to keep going around and see a little bit more coming up, but not the big turquoise zone yet. I'm still pulling up random spot dyed pieces. Okay, we're getting into the turquoise now. So at this point, I'm going to start meandering back and forth right next to that first loop to start zoning the turquoise color a bit, so it just doesn't end up being very small bits of turquoise scattered all over the piece, but that it'll be a larger turquoise zone. Back to yellow, but then another one is turquoise coming up here. Okay, maybe out of that first turquoise zone, back to kind of a random of yellow, a little bit of green, back to turquoise, but I'm kind of close to this first zone, so I could go back over here and throw that turquoise in that first zone to control where it shows up on the piece. Nice dark patch of turquoise there. Okay, we're coming out of it again into the greens. And meanwhile, I'm essentially just meandering this wool all over the place, so I don't have any given shape. I don't have circles, I don't have zigzags. I just have a sort of a soft meandering pattern that is going to fill the sky here. And create a nice tapestry effect. Okay, I'm starting to pull up some more turquoise again. I'll make a small turquoise zone up in this side. That's the end of my first piece. Picked up another strip of wool. This strip here had quite a lot of turquoise in it. So now I picked up a piece that has quite a bit more yellow on it, and I'm going to use this to create some yellow zoned areas. Coming up with the yellow here, I am going to make kind of a neighborhood of yellow loops as much as possible in one area. Back and forth, up and down, kind of encircling the original yellow. Keeping that here instead of just traipsing off elsewhere with it. Now I've ended up with a little spot dye there. Let's see where this goes, because this might be a nice surround to this darker patch here. This is pretty green coming up. Going back to turquoise a bit, back to the green. Oh no, let's zone this green here. Let's see where that goes. Starting to get a little bit lighter. Seems to be coming back to yellow. Let's see, not yet. A little darker there. That's okay, because we're still not as dark as what we had up here. If we got to a point in these loops where we had a patch we didn't like, we could always just pull it up and cut it out. But we'll just play with this for now. We're kind of in that soft greeny turquoise area. We've created a dark turquoise blue zone here, a yellow patch here, yellow one down here. We're into our greens over here. And we're just going to keep carrying this spot dye around a little bit in a meandering pattern until we come up with another section of real color. There was a little bit of yellow there. This is kind of a mix of yellow and green. I may try zoning this and see what comes of it. On the article in Rug Hooking magazine, the cut I was using was a number 3. I'm doing a number 5 here so that you can actually see the loops more easily, and it would have been, it's just easier to see on a 5 cut than it would have been on the other. But here we have a situation now where we've had a little bit more control over where those zones of color are in our piece, and that's what we're looking for. This is a fairly staid and solid, straight up and down hooking motif here, this barn or this house at night. But I want the sky to be quite swirly, and this is where it's going to start looking into that lovely night sky with a lot of excitement to it. We have we've started the meandering pattern here, added another strip that had more yellow to it. I'm going to go back to a slightly darker strip of wool with darker bits of blue in it, because I'm ready for kind of a darker blue patch either on this side or over in here. I think I'll start it here. So I start pulling up the loops, and already I'm getting into that same really rich blue that is on up in here, and I'm going to keep encircling it so that I end up zoning that color. Remembering I have to, there has to be a little bit of twisting on the back to keep from flipping the wool. Okay, I got a yellow spot here. I may be already out of the blue. I'm into these pale yellow, light green, minty green, and I will just keep zoning that as the patch next to the blue. Until the next color comes up. And that appears to be, okay, we're getting back into the blue again, which is just about the right place because it's going to be right near the previous blue. There's a little touch of purple, how pretty. Back to a lighter yellow here. So I'm going to add that to that little yellow patch here. Is going to get this one here. We're back to a little bit of a darker blue there. Back to a lighter blue, and then we're going to turn direction and come back this way. We're meandering around. We're not making it into circles, zigzags, or anything. We're going to, okay, I don't think I want that yellow right there. I'm going to set that yellow down here and see what comes up next. Save that for later. Start meandering back again. And it creates kind of a nice round of motion in the sky of the piece. Back to my medium greens here, a little bit of slight spot dye going on, and I'm going to keep that all together on this side. Back to a little bit darker blue. Here we are going back into a deep blue again. So I'll go around that and see how big it is. It's not very big. Actually, it's going to end up just being a spot. If I didn't want that there, I could pull that up and cut it off and continue with the next color in, and then I would have gotten rid of that one spot. It's okay. We're going to leave it. But that's another option when you're zoning. So we're just kind of meandering around. Here's another blue. Let's see how long that goes. Let's put that blue. I'm going to zone this, come around, and by that third loop, I should be in the blue again, which puts it next to this guy. We're back into our medium greens. And I'm zoning those. And that's how we get this effect then of a scissors, of a kind of a lovely meandering path tapestry effect. It isn't just a loop here and there of color, but we have the darker blues here, we have the lights, yellows here, we have the mediums, and then we have the greens over in here. And overall, depending on how big the patches of color are on your spot dye, and you can control that in the dyeing process, you can also then, the second time you have control over that is how you hook it.
Coco, you got green algae in your mouth.
This is Sandra Brown again, thanking you for watching this video on the meandering path technique for hooking with spot dyed wools. When we want to zone our colors on our pieces. And this pertains to two articles that are going to be coming in the Rug Hooking magazine in fall and winter 2017, 2018. My own website is rughookingart.com. And thank you so much for watching.